All right, this is RamView. It is February the 16th, 2022, and I'm Joe Terosian, and I'm the host of RamView, my own or RamView show, talking about Rams. And so I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to open with some high adventure, and and today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Really looking forward to it. It's fun to talk about things and to keep going after the Super Bowl. I noticed in my hits and clicks, they took a huge dive. Which wasn't very big anyway, so it was a low dive, but it took enough of a dive to let us know the football season was over for some. But many know this is where if you're a Ram fan or even any NFL team, they really butter their bread and make their bacon this time of year, post Super Bowl in the pending free agency and NFL draft period. This is where you sculpt what your team's going to be. It would be 2022 season later in this fall. And this is where you make the hard calls, right? We talked about that yesterday, cutting some players because of salary cap issues. You make some hard calls and moving on from some guys that emotionally you might be attached to. But we also know the one thing about football is football's not, while it's played with emotion, the business of football is without emotion. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And that's why I'm here on the third day after the Super Bowl. So we've got stuff to talk about. We got to deal with some whining. We've got a discussion with Kyler Murray. We got big name free agents to name. And what names are starting to already pop for the Rams cause in the NFL draft? Because we broke that down yesterday that the Rams have a 3, a 4, 3 6th-round picks and 2 7th-round picks. That's as of right now. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. We want to hit on all those things. Off the top, though, real quick to make sure we start RamView with talking about the Rams. You know, all the talk about Sean McVay retiring, and hey, anything's possible. You know, he's getting married, wants to start a new life with his wife. But remember this: just like we were in the Super Bowl window for highly critical stuff, you know, breaking news, how would we say this? The Brian Flores suit and other things that's, hey, get this stuff in the Super Bowl window because it's going to get high attention. Well, we're now in another window. We're in that window before movement starts. I believe the free agency period starts March 16th. That's when the 1 year ends and the new year begins fiscally. And so we're in that other middle ground. So everyone's searching and glomming on for stuff to talk about. And with the Rams, one of them is Sean McVay, and that maybe Sean McVay is going to retire. I could see it happening, you know, but honestly, remember that it's being drummed up a little bit more than probably it is. But I'm going to assume that Sean McVay's wife, he's 36, she's 31. They're not kids. They're not in their 20s. I'm sure that there's a maturity there that knows that what will make her husband the happiest, you know, because he's going to listen to his wife. What's going to make her husband the happiest, right? And I think stepping down at 36 after 5 seasons as an HC, no matter how exhausting it is, I just don't see it happening. Even in my life, I've had a few times, not a lot. I'm not a hot commodity, especially when the hair turned gray. There are times you're offered what appears a better job or a better opportunity, and you can make more money. And sometimes you have to make a decision on what's going to make you happy. And there have been a couple times where I turned down more money because I just wasn't going to be happy for me. It wasn't going to be happy for my family. And McVay is on a completely different level. I'm just not buying that there's any real fear here that McVay is going to step down. And then on the flip side of that too is he is getting married. Maybe there's a family in the offing. There's stuff coming up. Is that maybe he's not going to be that 105% guy, 115% guy anymore. Maybe with a new wife to balance him out and keep perspective. Maybe if there's going to be children, he's going to go back down to 100% guy. And so it'll be interesting to see. But right now, I just wouldn't stress. I saw this list of potential candidates to replace Sean McVay. I didn't even look at it. I just thought, come on, are we crazy here? Wait until it happens. And if it does happen, great. In the subject of whining, I did get some whining that said Joe doesn't know how to do anything but talk about the Rams. Well, it is called RamView. I mean, I do write a column called FanView, but when I published that on Monday, what was there to talk about other than the Super Bowl? So So FanView became RamView, and loyal listener Riley Saxon, also what would you say, a contributor to JoeTerosian.com with College Hoops Breakdown, which is a really good college basketball column. He wants telling me what to do, and my response is something different to him. I think he needs to think about college basketball and let me think about football.
Stay in your lane, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Stay in your lane,
okay,
bro.
I'm thinking that's exactly what Riley needs to do. He needs to stay in his lane, because what else am I going to talk about right now? Am I going to talk about the NBA? Are you kidding me? Am I going to talk about the MLB going Kevorkian? I mean, I'm so stunned that we should be talking about pitchers and catchers reporting on February 16th in another week or so, that we're not talking about it because they're still locked out and they haven't figured this out. So we're going to do what we talk about. College basketball is your lane.
Stay in your lane, bro.
And so Riley, you stay in your lane, and I'm going to talk football. And I'm going to talk about the Rams. My intention Monday through Friday is to talk Rams football, and the NFL until I can't, or something else in sports matters more to me. But right now, this is RamView, and this is kind of where we're at. Hot topics today, the Rams, the NFC West, because if you're going to talk about the Rams, you got to talk about those other three teams and what moves they're making. Because if there's a 17-game season, an 18-game season, I've heard talk about that finally. That's a third of your season is based on playing the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. And so you want to know what those teams are doing, because they can make or break your season. So we'll be talking about the Rams, the NFC West, the NFL, the combine, the free agency, the draft. And I just believe there's always something to talk about. It's like the line from Jaws. If you say Barracuda, everyone says, huh, what? But if you say shark, then there's a panic on the 4th of July. When we're talking sports right now, you say NBA, everyone says, huh, what? You say NFL, and Joe T gets clicks and moves books and horns up, baby. That's all it's about. And so I love talking football, and so we're going to keep talking football. Just stay in your lane, Mr. Saxon. The one thing that's popping up right now, speaking of the NFC West, is Kyler Murray. I don't hear anyone say it, but I keep getting an implication or an inference that Murray didn't run the ball and stayed in the pocket in the playoffs. And I brought this up yesterday because he didn't want to get hurt. And then there's a loose report that I'm not buying, that he didn't want to go back in at the end of the game. Well, they were losing by 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't put him back in the game either. I'd send Mccoy out there to get smashed. But he wants to get paid now. I totally get him wanting to get paid right now. But you know what? He's not Josh Allen. He's not anywhere near Josh Allen, right? He wants to get paid now, but Kyler Murray hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't won a division. He hasn't won one of those worthless MVP awards. I could care less about any MVP, offensive player in the year, defensive player of the year. I could care less about a Pro Bowl appearance. I just think, who cares? Also, Kyler's got bad body language and doesn't look like a leader. I had some suspicions about him at the end of last year. I thought he looked great this year. I think he's a pure thrower. I think he's an excellent talent, but he does have physical limitations and that leadership stuff. The play where they lost to Green Bay, where AJ Green didn't turn around on the throw and it got picked and cost the Cardinals gave them their first loss of the year. I hated his body language on that. Yeah, Green didn't turn around, and maybe it was something Green blew. But you know what? With a guy that's going to the Hall of Fame, likely in AJ Green, you bring it up in the locker room. Instead, Murray had all that body language. I hated it. I just can't stand it. I cannot stand a quarterback that points fingers in public. Go in the locker room and duke it out. I get that, but that really lost me on Murray. And I've seen those other times that he shakes his head and just does this. I see Lamar Jackson and he's ticked off. I love that. I see other quarterbacks, Tom Brady, they're ticked off. They're really they're invested and they're bought in to what the whole team is doing, but I can't handle a sulker and I can't handle a finger pointer. And then on top of that, he looks like he's got physical limitations and he looks like a citizen of the Shire. He looks like he should be running around with some fellowship with Gandalf and Frodo and Sam. I mean, he's a small dude. He's going to get whacked. He's going to get hurt. And whether he gets paid or not, he's going to get hurt again. He's had 2 seasons where he hasn't really finished well because he's been banged up. But my response to all of that is pay the man. Pay Kyler Murray. Maybe he turns the corner this fall in his 4th season and finishes the season and the Cardinals go great. No denying his talent. Beautiful. As a Rams fan, I want them to pay him. I do. Pay the man and hamstring their salary cap, right? Because that is just stone groove, my man. It will be a stone. It will be a stone groove if the Rams can get the Cardinals to pay Kyler Murray his money, because it will hamstring their salary cap. They did everything. They drafted him number 1. They moved the number 10 overall pick, Josh Rosen, to accommodate him when they drafted him in 2019. They put parts around him in 2021 that were designed to win in 2021. And now they're going to have to bring in new parts. They've invested in Kyler Murray, and that's great. And here's the other thing, too. The Cardinals have free agency issues. Chandler Jones is a free agent. Christian Kirk, both running backs, Chase Edmonds and James Conner, who were a load for the Rams to deal with this year, are free agents. The midseason acquisition of Zach Ertz, again, to buy into this year for Kyler Murray, he's a free agent. So they were bought in for this year. They also bought in with Rodney Hudson, who got hurt, J.J. Watt, who got hurt. And with all that, that's not mentioning that A.J. Green's a free agent. And another one that's kind of key, because Kyler does get banged up, Colt McCoy is a free agent. And I'm not saying they're going to break the bank for him, but they could really use a quarterback like Colt McCoy who could step in and play for 3 weeks and keep the team afloat, as he did this year. Plus, the Cardinals' offensive line is ranked 18th in pass protection, 31st in run blocking, 23rd in ranked defense overall. So pretty pleased with sugar on it. Please, Cardinals, pay Kyler Murray, right? And you could backload it so you got more maneuverability in the present, and backload it to a few years down the road. Awesome. Because if this all follows suit where he keeps falling apart and physically can't, whether you pay him or not, he's going to get hurt, right? Then that back end of the contract is really going to hamstring the Cardinals organization, and that's just 2 more wins for the Rams. So yeah, I'm for paying him. Give him his dough. Make the investment in Kyler Murray. It's great. And also the truth is that if you don't pay him, you still got him. You still have his rights for a couple of years, and you still have the ability to franchise tag him. So, and if he doesn't want to perform, if he's got an attitude about performing, if he doesn't want to run, he's only hurting himself. And so he will lose the locker room if indeed that is what he does. And sooner or later, someone's not going to put up with it. And because the NFL window is so short that no one's going to tolerate that. And it might not get physical, but players will leave, and players might not want to come. And so it's really on Kyler Murray. Just, shut up and play ball, man. And his world will change. And it's all the Cardinals can do. I pair this with Aaron Rodgers a little bit. The guy who is already made his money. He has 1 ring, wants another. And so it's interesting to look at his situation. Is that, shouldn't he be wanting to structure down with Devontae Adams and some other free agents instead of making more money? Shouldn't Zen Rodgers want to be taking a restructure to make it easier for them to keep pieces in place around him? That's a huge deal, But then again, college hoops breakdown writer for JoeTerosian.com is Riley Saxon, and the Green Bay Packers are his team. So
Stay in your lane, bro.
So I'll stay in my lane, and I won't interfere with the Green Bay Packers. They're not in the NFC West, and I'll let Riley Saxon deal with that. Speaking of Devontae Adams, key free agents this year in the NFL, and he's one of them, along with Terron Armstead, which most people don't know about. He's the tackle for the Saints. Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay, you remember him? Von Miller is still listed as one of the top 5 free agents in the NFL, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with him and the Rams. Chandler Jones from the Cardinals, he's a free agent. They're going to have to decide. Their defense is already not the best in the world, and they're going to have to think about what they're going to do with him. J.C. Jackson, cornerback with the New England Patriots. Another interesting one, because I don't do much talk about him, is the Chargers. Mike Williams, the receiver out of Clemson, who is really a hit and miss kind of guy, but boy, he's devastating sometimes. When he's right, he could be great. He's a free agent for the Chargers. Allen Robinson III, his numbers have just suffered in Chicago because they haven't had a quarterback to get him the ball. It'll be really interesting where he lands. He would be somebody that would be kind of interesting, that if the Rams moved off OBJ and if they had the dough, could you imagine what an Allen Robinson acquisition could do for the Rams receiving core as another rental, so to speak? I don't see that happening. I know Robinson's getting a little late in the tooth. He started off, I think, in Jacksonville. He's been in Chicago. He's made his money, but I still think he's looking for more money. But he'd be a heck of an acquisition. Plus, there's plenty of more free agents that are out there. Jadeveon Clowney's a free agent again. He's on the market. And so keep an eye on all that. I want to intersperse here one thing. Back in 1987, I went back to school because I just went back to school. I was working in a supermarket for a couple of years and knew this wasn't it. I love sports, wanted to get into sports writing. I started stringing for a local paper. Then I went back to college, and I was next thing you know, I was the editor of the school paper or the school sports section, not the paper. I wasn't that gifted. And I wrote an inherited column that the guy before me wrote. I didn't name it, but it was called Sports Off the Sleeve. And I remember in 1987, that's when the NFL strike happened. And I wrote that I would be behind the players a whole lot more if they attached the condition of getting rid of AstroTurf to their grievances. And I think that would have been a wonderful thing for them to do. That was in 1987. I covered games with AstroTurf. I've been right on the field with AstroTurf, and that stuff is evil. I just think there's so much wrong with AstroTurf, and I kind of let it go because nothing changed, and just kind of went on, and the players kept playing, and there had been other lockouts and stoppages and different things, and it wasn't an issue. And then you realize that when OBJ banged up and tore that ACL again, his knee, that wasn't on field turf or grass. That was on AstroTurf. And I just don't understand why a place like SoFi, the Taj Mahal of NFL stadiums, is it field turf? Because why isn't it field turf? The softer stuff. If you've been on field turf, it's like replicated grass. And why, if it's not field turf, why is it AstroTurf? Is that so it's easy to do halftime shows during the Super Bowl? I'm thinking the Rams do such brilliant things in terms of, I know they say Sean McVay doesn't have heavy practices, even before the changes because of CTE fears and different things, that the Rams don't hit a lot in practice, and that keeps them fresh. It's something that other teams have adopted since the Rams went this route. But I can't understand why the Rams, Les Snead, McVay don't call for it, is that maybe at SoFi it needs to be field turf at the bare minimum. And not the AstroTurf, and maybe save the wear and tear on some of their players. So if someone wants to start a bandwagon to get rid of AstroTurf, I'm all over it, man. I'm right there with you, because that is wrong to put players on that. I've seen high school players on it, college players on it. Not good, man. It's no bueno. So in that one, I will stay out of my lane, and I will champion for that. 3 days ago, to get to a wrap up here as we hit the 18-minute mark, we left Super Bowl Sunday knowing the Rams needed some physicality from their interior of their offensive line. Mentally tough, the whole Rams team's mentally tough, but physically we know they're lacking. And so coming up with the draft, we broke down yesterday that the Rams have roughly about 7 draft picks right now. The 3rd round, 4th round, 3 number 6s, and 2 number 7s. And we broke down the kind of players they've accumulated in those rounds of the draft the last few years and who's on their roster now. So I scoured some of the mock drafts going on by some of the different sites whose whole job is to do the draft coverage and everything. And I just thought it would be fun to start bringing in names. And I'll post these names in from the Ram Cave on Friday, because it'd be great as you build your big board on who the Rams should be looking at. And that's the fun part that the Rams have given us. I can't stand the red carpet treatment on a Thursday night, or what I think it is Thursday night, of the NFL draft. I can't stand them turning into an Oscars. I just think they've butchered it for the real fan. and it's low hanging fruit, right? That's what they're going to go for. But the Rams have alleviated any concern for us in that moment, and they've allowed us to dive deep, the opportunity to dive deep and search on who they might be going after. Names like Anthony Schwartz and Dwayne Eskridge popped last year. The Rams had interviews with these guys, and we heard about Tutu Atwell, and they ended up going with Atwell at receiver instead of Schwartz or Eskridge, and it's fascinating stuff. And it just you gain a greater appreciation for who these guys are, and you gain a greater appreciation. So when the Greg Gaines, the Nick Scott, when all these guys, when their moment comes, you go, oh, I remember when they drafted this guy, right? And so it's pretty interesting stuff. So I was scouring the boards, and I'm just going to throw some names at you here. I don't expect you to write them all, but I will have them in the Ram Cave on Friday. And we'll just start building a board of what names are being associated with the Rams. If we find out they've interviewed anybody, we'll put that in there. But with the third pick, third round, these were the names. There was 3 different players mentioned. They were all interior linemen, right? They were all, well, not interior. Some of them were tackles, but 3 names came up. And there was some debate whether the Rams have the 104th or 106th pick overall, but we'll figure that out. But the name that came up twice in the mock drafts was Memphis center Dylan Parham, left tackle Braxton Jones of Southern Utah. And he's not really what I was reading about him, he's more of a run blocking guy. He's not really gifted in the drop back, so he'd be somebody that could convert maybe. And Jackson Kirkland, Washington, up north, guard tackle. And he was a name that popped up. He runs about 6'6", 310. And so it'll be interesting to see right there. In the 4th round, names that came up were Miami of Ohio edge rusher Dominique Robinson. And edge rushing is going to be really interesting because they got Leonard Floyd locked up. Von Miller's a free agent. We don't know what's going to happen there. And you got Justin Hollins, Terrell Lewis, and Ogobo Okoronkwo is a free agent. He might be looking for his payday. We're going to be interested to see what the Rams do there. And also Chris Garrett, defensive end, outside linebacker. He was the dream guy that was drafted in the 7th round, Division II, and everyone loves him, but he didn't play a lick this year, so we'll see. The 4th round came up also with Memphis cornerback Kobe Bryant. Popular name in Los Angeles. So he was one that came up. One name that popped up a lot in discussions and different things is with the first pick in the 6th round. The Rams have picked 210, 211, and I think 212 or 213. And the name that came up a couple times was Indiana linebacker Micah McFadden. And Troy Reeder's a free agent. I don't know if the Rams are going to want to pay him much more money. Traven Howard is a free agent. Even though they got clicks out of Howard and Reeder, are they going to want to pay them any significant money? So Ernest Jones looks like he's a lock. And maybe Micah McFadden, which some people like, some people hate, but 6th round, it's kind of interesting to hear that name. Also in the 6th round, the name that came up again was Dylan Parham, the Memphis center, Texas A&M edge rusher Michael Clemens, and Michigan guard tackle Andrew Stuber. And you always like those Michigan guys because they're big and they're big bubbas. And I don't know if I want them on the tackle, but on the interior guard spot, David Edwards had some struggles. Austin Corbett's a free agent, so it's something to think about. Also that came up on that list were center Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame, Alabama running back Brian Robinson. All these were 6th round guys. And in the 7th round, Tulsa wide receiver Josh Johnson. Ohio State cornerback safety Seven Banks. And if they played at Ohio State, he runs about 6'1", 200. He's going to be a good athlete. He's going to be a good player. And also being a hybrid cornerback safety kind of fits with what the Rams are looking for in many of the things they do. Traven Howard, if you remember, maybe you won't, was a safety in college and got converted. Also, another name that came up was Isaac Taylor Stewart out of USC at corner, and one quarterback. And that's something to talk about going forward is John Wolford's a free agent. And the name that came up was Iowa State quarterback Brock Purdy, and there's Bryce Perkins and John Wolford on the roster now, but I think Wolford's going to be a free agent. I think Wolford had his moment. I think as we saw the preseason last year, I think there was an impressiveness to Bryce Perkins that everyone seemed to like and buy into, and so I want to see more of that. And so okay, the music's up, and I got to come out here. But that's just stuff to think about. I'm Joe Tarosian, and my high school college football book is out a few years ago. High school football book is called Tangent Dreams, and I'd encourage you to check that out on Amazon. Got some nice reviews. And hey, we're going to be back, and we'll see you tomorrow. And our goal is to be here every day that we can, Monday through Friday, to talk about Ram football. All right, guys, thank you so much for clicking on. Thank you so much for the sharing. Thank you so much for the comments. Thank you so much for the encouragement. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and on Facebook. God bless. Take care.